Welcome, everybody, to our fourth day of this Gita podcast. We are reading through the Bhagavad Gita, this book right here, Bhagavad Gita as it is. We are attempting to read through it and discuss it with our beautiful Sangha here. I'm Radha Priti, and I'm here with Veda Sar, who is in Atlanta. How are you, Veda?
Fantastic.
You're extra white today. You look like some kind of sage. Yeah.
I'm just completely whited out. It's white out.
Yeah. Okay. So do you want to get into it?
Let's do it.
All right, we are starting chapter 1, text 10. I'm going to share my screen with you all so we can look at Veda base together. And do you want to start with the Sanskrit, Veda?
So those of you who are able to look at the script, you can just see what it sounds like. Aparyaptam tadasmakam balam bhishma virakshitam paryaptam tvidame desham balam bhima virakshitam.
Translation. Our strength is immeasurable, and we are perfectly protected by grandfather Bhishma, whereas the strength of the Pandavas, carefully protected by Bhima, is limited. Okay, so what we have here, this is Duryodhana speaking. Still that evil prince is speaking here. And we know he's a politician. We know he's kind of all about the mind games. That's kind of like, we're in this phase right now where he's trying to amp everybody up and get everybody ready for war on his side. So here he's comparing these two characters, Bhishma and Bhima, which is interesting. He says, our strength is immeasurable. We are perfectly protected by grandfather Bhishma, whereas the strength of the Pandavas, carefully protected by Bhima, is limited. So first he talks about Bhishma, and Bhishma is the commander of the Kauravas, the commanders of the evil side. And Bhima, who he talks about as being carefully protected, the Pandavas, the other side being carefully protected by Bhima, he's not the commander. So it's interesting that he's comparing these two characters because they're not really situated in the same seat. And the reason that he purposely chooses these two characters is that Bhima, he's kind of envious of Bhima. Bhima and him are both in the same they're both mace fighters, like club fighters. So they're kind of in the same category of fighters. And so they had the same teacher. And so there was just like some rivalry there. And so he chooses him. And also in addition to that, he knows that if he's going to die in the battle, that Bhima is the only one that would kill him. Because Bhima was it a curse, Veda, that he would kill him? Or was it a vow?
He took a vow.
He took a vow. He took a vow that he would do. So he's kind of intimidated there. And then Bhishma, the commander of the Kauravas, he is the grandfather of everybody, including the Pandavas. So he also has a lot of affection for the Pandavas, just to give a little backstory on Bhishma. So again, these are all just kind of these mind games for Duryodhana, trying to make sure that his side is ready to fight. And yeah, so this envy that he has with Bhima, who is kind of his rival, because they're both club fighters. They're both of the same category of fighting. And so therefore there's kind of a competition there. It's interesting to think about this envy. You know, Duryodhana, it's nice that we have Duryodhana here at the beginning because he represents like all material thinking. And it's easy for us to look at this and be like, this guy is terrible. He's evil. He's, all of these things. But what we should understand is that all of these traits that we're seeing in Duryodhana, we all really exhibit in some way or another. Maybe not to the same degree, maybe not in the same like situation, but we all also have envy in our hearts. It's like, have you ever felt good in somebody else's misfortune. And it's easy to say, no, I'm everybody's happy, like well-wishers. But what if it's somebody that really has done you wrong? Or what if it's somebody who got ahead by cheating? What if it's one of those situations? Can you still really be their well-wisher? Do you still not kind of delight a little bit if things go wrongly for them in the way that they're conducting themselves? So this envy we talk about is envy is counting other people's blessings other than your own. I saw that quote and I liked it. So I took it. Envy is counting the art of counting other people's blessings instead of your own. And we should also understand that the problem is not with our environment. The problem is in our own hearts. The problem is related to this lack of dissatisfaction with our own lives and perhaps lack of trust in a higher power than ourselves to kind of control that life, right? We try to be the mini controllers. We should understand that there's something bigger that we could kind of lean into that is taking care of us and that's taking care of them too. And so wherever they are, they'll also reap, the reactions of whatever they did. So it's not even something that we need to worry about. So these are kind of my thoughts on envy. What are your thoughts on envy, Veda?
A lot of thoughts, but to put more precisely, I think that it's one quality that doesn't have any spiritual value. Every other quality in the world has spiritual value: anger, lust. All those qualities have some spiritual value. They can be transformed, transmuted. But this quality of envy is not something that has any utility in spiritual life. It's actually, what is it? There is this special chemical, it's called Roundup.
Oh.
And
Use Roundup? Do you use Roundup, Veda?
No, I've had many students who gave me their thesis and their research on it, and they told me that I should never use Roundup. So it's that one component that if we carry in our lives, that it'll kill your spiritual life.
Roundup is like a weed killer that kills anything you put it on. It's like very toxic.
So this, in this case of Duryodhana's envy, I find it intriguing that he is talking about Bhishma, who is the greatest warrior, a saintly warrior, who had the blessings of his divine mother. His mother is Mother Ganga, Ganges, is Bhishma's mother. And he has the benediction to only leave his body when he wants to. It's pretty interesting because not everybody has that privilege, but he has that benediction. And he is being compared to Bhima, who is not even the commander-in-chief of the Pandavas. And the reason is Duryodhana's deep envy towards Bhima. And envy in this category is very unique because generally we're not just broadly envious of everyone. Envy is also very targeted and very pinpointed. And so he's envious of Bhima because they're in the same field of work, in the same field of warfare. For example, a doctor is not afraid of losing his job or his security if there is an engineer in the room. doctor is only afraid of another doctor that might take their job. An engineer is mostly envious of another engineer because someone can be better than them and can also possibly dethrone them from their position, because that's where the competition is. So envy it has a broad spectrum, but it is also very specific to whatever it is that we think that we are the best at, or we are the ones that know it all. So that's where you'll see envy becomes very narrow, and it becomes extremely strong when the more specific we become, the more envious we are of someone who has that same specificity. Is that the right word?
Yeah, I think so.
So that's what I'm seeing in this particular verse with Duryodhana. It's his colors are showing, and he's trying not to show them. So that's my take on that envy. It's a very powerful quality. To self-destruct is the most powerful quality, to self-destruct.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing. Should we move on?
You're the host, waiting for you.
All right, let's move to the next one. So now we are on chapter 1, text 11.
Can you make it any bigger?
Nope.
Okay, we'll make do with it.
This is a good challenge for you and your memory, Veda.
Ayaneshu cha sarveshu yatha bhagamavastita bhishmam eva virakshantu bhavanta sarva eva hi.
All of you must now give full support to Grandfather Bhishma as you stand at your respective strategic points of entrance into the phalanx of the army. Okay, so still with this character Bhishma, who we've kind of been talking about. And after praising the expertise of Bhishma, Duryodhana didn't want the others to feel less important. So he's kind of trying to pump everybody up with his words. And even though Bhishma was the greatest hero, he was also very elderly. You know, he's a grandfather to everybody. So Duryodhana's plan was to keep him protected from all sides. So that's kind of what he's communicating in this text. And again, here Duryodhana, like we've been talking about, he's a good politician. He's good at getting people to do what he wants. And he's very mindful in everything that he's saying and how he's saying it and who he's choosing, really trying to kind of manipulate the situation here. Which again is another interesting material trait that we can all relate to on some level in some circumstance in our life at some time. And something we can learn from in seeing this. You want to go first on this one? What do you think of manipulation, Veda?
Everyone in this world is manipulating. There's no one that doesn't manipulate. The question we have to ask is, why are we manipulating? What is the cause behind it? And that's the most important thing with this manipulation, because his inherent nature of being so entangled in materialism that if you look at every single company, is they're trying to manipulate so that you can purchase, you can subscribe. In the relationship, husband is trying to manipulate the wife, wife is trying to manipulate the husband so they can. If the relationship is material, then that's what happens. And there's nothing wrong with manipulation, provided that the intent of manipulation is a spiritual intent. When you want to serve someone, like a mother, for example, wants the best for the child. And so the mother says different things and does everything so that the child can make the best choices in their career paths, in their, in their dietary requirements, and every aspect of their life, because the intention is pure. So that is something that we have to check ourselves. What is it that we're trying to manipulate others to do? So that's the whole principle of manipulation. But Duryodhana here, that's not his intention. His intention is not so pure. And so the consequences of that is also not so great. Every action has a consequence, and the intention of that action determines the consequence of our actions. And his intention is not up there,
Yeah. Sometimes I think it can be hard to find what is like, quote unquote, the right thing to do, or because everything is so gray that sometimes, I mean, it's very black and white, but like, for me, I was always like all about the absolute truth. And I thought like science, this is the absolute truth. And then I get into the scientific community and I kind of see the same thing, people do kind of manipulate data, or people sometimes decide which way they kind of want to go. And then they find the evidence to back the way that they're going because it's possible. And then it does kind of make you question like, all right, what are we really working to here? What is the higher objective? How do we know that we're in line with that versus just like being carried away by whatever we think we know or we
It's
think we want?
it's the very nature of the world, the whole world of science. For example, if I am an owner of a certain company that makes a certain product, the probability of me hiring a whole bunch of researchers and scientists to publish papers in support of the product that I'm creating is very high. So therefore, in the material world, whatever you want to prove is the best you can, because you just spent your resources on researchers and science, and they will find that for you to support your narrative. So this whole principle of the I-centrism, that I am the center of everything, and whatever I do is the best, that mentality gets translated into our influences in the world. So we definitely, if people have resources, then they try to manipulate that by getting people with credentials. And when people with credentials puts their stamp on it, then it must be great. So, that's how materialism works. And it's just the question of the intent behind the manipulation. Facebook is making sure that everyone is glued onto Facebook because they have done research how Facebook is really good for you. It builds communities, it fosters this, and they have done research, and it's all true. And it's not that it's false, but they will not present the other side because we want to present our side, and the other side is for others to figure out. So that's, the whole intent of manipulation is something that the ones that are being manipulated would have to pause and ask questions. But it is the very nature of material existence. We cannot avoid that in this world. I mean,
Yeah.
I manipulate people to go and to serve.
You do it to
Go
me
out,
all the time. You
go
did it to
out
me
and
this
to
morning.
serve. I go and I beg and I plead and I give so many different spiritual arguments and material arguments. Let's go out and serve.
You do not want to argue with this guy. You will lose.
So that's, that's my reason, but everyone has a different reason.
Yeah. Thank you.
Let's go to the next.
Okay. (1.12).
Tasya sanjanayam harsha kuru vridha pitamaha simhanadam vinadyochai sankham dadma pratapavan.
Then Bhishma, the great valiant grandsire of the Kuru dynasty, the grandfather of the fighters, blew his conch shell very loudly, making a sound like the roar of a lion, giving Duryodhana joy. Okay, so here what we're seeing is first off this blowing of the conch shell. It's indicative of the beginning of something holy, kind of like at the beginning of, not really at all like, but similar to at the beginning of a sports game when they blow a whistle to indicate the start of it. This is like the culture, or the thing that they did in this culture and do in this culture to indicate the beginning of something, something holy. It's an invocation for auspiciousness, and it also indicates, it's also indicative of morale. So like the way that they blow the conch shell is indicative of the morale of the person who's blowing it. So Bhishma blew his really loud, like the sound of a lion, indicating that he was fully ready to fight, because Bhishma is very dutiful, and it's his duty to fight. So regardless, even though he does have affection for Pandavas, and he's like, all right, let's do this. I'm ready to fight. This is my duty. Let's do it. So this is interesting, just when we talk about this, the significance of different codes of conduct in war. Like this is one. But we've talked about this before when we talk about this war in particular. Oftentimes in our heads, when we think about leadership or wars, we think about fighting over power, and that element is there. But back in these days, back in this culture, like really good kings, like the Pandavas, they wanted to, they're fighting. They want to rule not for power, but because they feel it's their responsibility, and because they feel like it's their service to God. And their nature is this Sastriya nature. Their nature is administrative, so they just have these inherent qualities that make them good at this. And so it's their dharma. So they're fighting this war again. We can say, it's a religious war, but not in the way that we sometimes think of religious wars, where people are fighting over who's God. They're fighting over dharma. They're fighting over the right thing to do. And the Pandavas, they're feeling it is their duty to be administrators, to rule, and they're being denied this, and they're being denied it by people that don't really have those same pure motives. And so that's where this is. It's not, and also in addition to that, the way they fight the war is so much more dharmic, so much more aligned with the right thing to do. It's not like terrorism, or they have like a whole set of rules that govern how they're going to fight this, to keep it like dharmic, to keep it in the line of righteousness, and they follow that. They honor that code. Do you want to share a little bit about the code, about some of the codes, Veda?
Yeah, there's a lot of codes, because the principle of this war is a principle. It's not, there's no anger and jealousy that people are just trying to kill each other for the heck of it because we don't like them. That's not the reason for this war. It's to establish a certain principle, and it's that morality and ethics. And so they have set a certain series of guidelines. in this war, for example, the war starts when they blow the conch shells and is after the sunrise, so everyone can see, it's purely visible. And then the war stops as the sun is setting, and it's like going to work 9 to 5. The sun sets and they stop war and they stop the war, and they're best of their families again. They get together, they have dinner together, and they chit chat, have bonfires together, and and heal the warriors. And so it's a very cultured war. Other rules are that if someone is unarmed and you are armed, you cannot attack them. You can't just go and kill anybody and everybody. And if someone is not facing you, you can't kill them. So there's all these codes, and it's very important because everyone knows that in this war, we will be studying in the later verse, but because we're discussing it, I'll just lightly mention it, that this war is fought with the very intention that if we win this war, then we get to enjoy the kingdom. And if we don't make it alive out of this war, then we go straight to the heavenly planets. You will see later on this verse, there is a verse, Yadrichaya Chopapannam. It says, open are the gates to the heaven, to whom such fighting opportunities come unsought. And the reason the doors of the heavenly planets are open is because this war is a war on principles and morality. So everyone wants to go there or they want to enjoy here. So therefore, no one breaches these rules of morality and ethics. So it was decided upon by everyone, and all the warriors maintained, except they broke a few of them in between, and there was a price they paid. But generally speaking, it's a very principled war. And in this war, you can see the sanctity of it. You see Bhishma is blowing the conch shells, then you will see Arjuna and the Pandavas, they're also blowing their conch shells in the next few verses. It's very beautiful. It's almost like doing a ceremony. It's like a soccer match or a football match. Or you're doing a ceremony at the temples. They blow a conch shell to invoke auspiciousness. Conch shells represents auspiciousness. One of the reasons conch shell is blown. And it's also sometimes used in India. They blow conch shells to deghost a place. You know that? It's fascinating because it's so auspicious. Everything inauspicious decides this is not the place for us. So then they leave that space.
It's actually pretty hard to blow a conch shell.
Yes.
It's like not, you can't just like pick it up, and it takes like some practice and you feel pretty silly.
Yes.
Until you know how to do it, I guess. Yeah, because it's when they go to war, it's not even like they tried so many times to negotiate and to figure out a solution to this, and they just couldn't. There's peacefully settling it was like not an option. So then the next option is this war. And yeah, it's kind of amazing to hear how dharmically they even did that. It's just like so not the way that wars are fought nowadays.
Well, nowadays, the wars are personal. So that's why it's, sometimes it seems more like a massacre than a war. And the wars now are fought from, a little cubicle because you just fly the drones and you see the whole world and you can just drop whatever you want wherever you want. So the modality of the war nowadays is very different. The principled war that we're talking about that is being fought here is not the same that we see nowadays. you know, everyone is, when I say massacre, is because people don't discriminate. They cannot, because in that war, there is no women fighting the war. They're supposed to be protected. They're supposed to be sheltered. They're supposed to be, the ones that keep the family traditions. So they're in a, they're protected as the guys who are supposed to fight for certain principles. But nowadays, war, there's quite indiscriminate. They're not able to, even though they're quite sophisticated in technology, but they're still not able to somehow incorporate the codes. Because, when you drop a building, you don't know who's there, and there could be so many people. So that's why the wars that are fought these days are, it almost feels, to me, it feels like a massacre. It's like, mass is not, we haven't waged a war, so why are you bombing me, So the whole principles of war is missing. And it seems like, I don't like you, you don't like me, so let's just try and kill everybody. Somehow it's different.
Yeah, and I like what you said too about how they knew if they did die in the war that their destiny would be a heavenly planet. So they really felt like they were fighting their duty, they're serving God, and that they're fighting their duty, and therefore if they die in the war, their result will still be good. So that's also kind of beautiful.
Yes,
Okay, should we go to the next one?
we should.
We are on 1.13.
तथा शङ्खश्च भैर्यश्च पनवानखगोमुखा सहसैभ्यहन्यन्त सशब्दस्तुमुलोऽभवत्.
After that, the conch shells, drums, bugles, trumpets, and horns were all suddenly sounded, and the combined sound was tumultuous. Okay, so
Self-explanatory.
what?
Seems self-explanatory, but
Yeah, so the sound is tumultuous, indicating that others are not demoralized. The core of a side is enthused to fight. That's what that indicates for us. Yeah. Okay, you want to go to the next one?
yeah. तथा श्वेतैर्हयैर्युक्ते महति स्यन्दने स्थितौ माधव पाण्डवश्चैव दिव्यशङ्खौ प्रदात्मतुः.
On the other side, both Lord Krishna and Arjuna, stationed on a great chariot drawn by white horses, sounded their transcendental conch shells. Okay, so here, in contrast to the conch shell blown by Bhishma, Krishna and Arjuna's conch shells are described as transcendental. So this in itself is a foreshadowing that the Pandavas will be victorious because Krishna is on their side. So as we continue to read this and this kind of unfolds, we continue to see some of these positive omens that kind of indicate that the Pandavas will be successful. Do you want to talk about a couple of these positive omens, Veda?
The fact that there's so many omens actually that determines the victory.
Give us a couple of your favorites.
The omen that it hits me the hardest is whenever you're fighting, if you have divine on your side, then the probability of you winning that fight is very high. So that's the biggest omen that we see here. And another thing is that Krishna has taken the reins of the horses. So if we look at life, we have to see who's your driver of your life. You know, if your mind is the driver, then not sure where you might end up, or your senses are the driver, then you're not sure where your life will end up. But if your heart is the driver, then it's quite certain where you will end up. And even better, if your heart is connected to the universal heart, to the divine, then it's all but good omens for victory and success in life. And that's why this Arjuna and Krishna, this is a typical scenario where the individual consciousness, the individual warrior, Arjuna, is there accompanied by the personification of supreme consciousness, guiding and navigating the battlefield. So those are great omens of victory in life.
Yeah, you know, it's interesting you bring up this position of Krishna driving the chariot. Also, you know, generally warriors are the ones who blow the conch shell, but in this also Krishna blew the conch shell, and that's not typical that the charioteer blows the conch shell. And Krishna is just not an ordinary charioteer, like you're saying. He's doing it out of affection for Arjuna. And typically the charioteer, again, is like the lower position. But Arjuna asked him to do it so that he could be with him all the time. And because he was expert. So it's interesting here how the Gita introduces God in this very endearing position. You know, he's like subservient to his devotee. He's serving us. And this position, it's intriguing, it's endearing, it's disarming, it's unassuming. And it's interesting to think about God in this role as our servant. You know, God will make himself our servant. How do we experience that? Veda, how do you experience God as your servant? Do you experience God as your servant?
I mean, every day, just wake up and you see the very fact that we are awake it's a very divine act to wake up in the morning. There are people who don't have this great privilege. So waking up in the morning is divine. To be able to breathe is divine. To be able to see is divine. Everything that we see is an expansion of the divine. And so what is it that we are doing in this world? We are simply an instrument who is being served. Everything that we could possibly want, free light, free oxygen, free water, everything is given to us. And this incredible salination, universal salination project of having, you know, the waters coming down, going into the ocean, evaporated, the sun takes it into the clouds and pours it all over the beautiful planet so that every vegetation, everything is properly nourished and we can go and harvest and cultivate and have food on the table. This is all but pure divine arrangement. It's nothing but God. So it just
So,
depends on the consciousness of how we look at it. And so I think it's important to understand that God is serving us. And the fact that we don't take and acknowledge that we are being served and that it is also our duty to reciprocate, to serve others, to serve God. And this is the misfortune that we have, that we have always been, but in this case with Arjuna, you know, he's personally being led to victory by Krishna, just being the charioteer. So it's important to note that at every point in our life, we're being served. And when we acknowledge that, then you are filled with nothing but pure gratitude. It is when we realize that, when we don't realize that everything has been given to us, and we didn't do anything for it. That's the funny thing. You didn't do anything to get the sun to shine, but the sun shines. And it doesn't even discriminate. It's not like no sun for Radha Priti, only sun for, Lisa. No. It's this completely uniformed, non-judgmental, equal delivery of service. I mean, I think just looking at how we're being served, if we don't recognize it and do something to serve others, to serve God, we may be missing the point. And it's something we need to contemplate on.
Yeah, it's interesting. Like our default is to either take it for granted or to take credit for it and feel like, oh, that was me. I did that.
Sure. Sure.
But
It's whenever we say that I did that, it was all because of me. It's just basically what we're doing is we're rejecting this beautiful flow of divine love into our life. The minute we think that we are the ones that are doing it, everything is happening because of my efforts. It is because of me. I have created this empire. As soon as we have this I, me, and mine mentality, the flow of love, divine love, stops in our life. Because, it's like the father thinks, okay, you got it, go for it. And then, you go and try and do everything by yourself, and then you keep falling flat on your face, and you get up and try and do it again. Yeah, I can do this. Yeah, man, you can do this. And, and people just give you this pep talks and listen to more motivational speeches and how you can do it. And then you try it again and you fall again and you try again and you fall again. And then finally you're on your deathbed. You're like, sorry, God, I tried my best. And it's sad. It's like, no, at some point we have to recognize the blessings that we have in our life, and just acknowledging those gifts in itself is the most profound prayer that anyone could ever imagine. And that prayer creates this reconnection of divine love into our life.
I love what you're saying because it's so congruent with what I feel like my experience was in getting into spiritual life. And it's just like a little bit of, it's just an internal shift more than anything of like going from this mindset that I'm the controller, everything's happening because of me or not because of like I'm in control of everything, to allowing like a little bit of space for divinity to intervene and becoming more of like maybe the observer and trusting in that. And the more trust that you can develop in that, I feel like reciprocally what you see is like magic unfold, like proportionally to the amount of trust that you can have in that when you allow that space and you really can lean into it and trust. I mean, I'm still like neophyte in this, but even just like when I can open up the gate a little bit and allow a little bit of trust, it's like whew, the rush of love and the way that your life kind of arranges itself is magnificent.
Yeah, to the degree that we consider ourselves the doers, to that degree you'll be disappointed in your life.
Mm.
So if you're very disappointed in your life, all you have to realize is because you really think you're the one that's doing everything. So it's just, a little shift is needed in order to have this divine life that is all accessible to all of us.
It's beautiful. Okay, can we conclude, Veda, with you telling the story of the chariot? That's another one of the omens that indicates that they're gonna win. It's just a cool story. You told me it last night.
It's a big story, but
Oh no, it's just the mini version that you told me
the
then.
mini version of the story is the chariot that the Pandavas, that Arjuna and Krishna is on, was given to them, given to Arjuna by the god of fire, fire god. So as you know, everything in this world burns to ashes. Fire is so powerful, doesn't matter what you feed it, it'll devour it. And so, in this whole battlefield, when these weapons were flying, there was a lot of fire everywhere because the chariots were burned to ashes. But Arjuna's chariot was never burned to ashes the whole battle. 18 days of the battle, nothing happened. Of course, you know, I think we can leave that story out there because it's a special gift by Agni Devata, who is the god of fire.
Okay, very nice.
Presiding deity of the fire, yes.
She's protected, so the chariot, Juno was protected because Krishna was on it.
Yes.
Thank you. Okay, do we want to open it up? Does anybody have any reflections or takeaways, questions, or just shares? Just love to touch base with you all.
I actually do. Good morning, everyone. And again, thank you so much for the class. I want to ask a minor question and then offer a comment. So at the end, remind me, please, at the end of every day of battle, do they sound the conch shell again
Yes.
to signal that it has ended?
Yes. So even if you had a sword and you were in midair,
Yeah.
and you're about to chop somebody's head off, if they blew the conch shell, you have to stop in midair. You know, they're ready to shoot an arrow is about to be shot, and the conch shell blows, you have to stop. So
At
those are
sunset.
Yes, yes. And then everyone would just get together and have dinner together and have a talk about the war, and you know, it was a beautiful culture of love and respect, and that everything should happen based on morality and ethics and principles and not on other things.
Thank
So
you.
please share, Lisa. You wanted to share something.
Well, my comment when you were speaking about service and God being a servant, I was thinking about the principle of oneness, that my life is the life of God, God is my life. So God would be in service to itself. And if we, as you suggested, line up with it, then we begin to have an experience of the divine as our life. So we then aren't separate and we can be one and experience all of the grace and all of the blessings that flow through that understanding. So I was just thinking that that was beautiful. Thank you.
Lisa. In the yoga philosophy, there is a concept that we study. It's called, in Sanskrit, it's called Achintya Bheda Abheda Tattva, which means simultaneously one and different. Because we are still so unique, so we maintain our individual identity. So, in other words, is qualitative similarity and quantitative difference. just like a drop of water from the ocean.
That's
It
right.
has all the qualities of the water in the ocean, except one is a drop with
That's
all
right.
the qualities, and then the ocean is expansive and infinite. And so that oneness, yes, that oneness is when we are connected with
Hmm.
the divine, and knowing that we also maintain our individual identity
That's right.
of being this incredible vessel of divine service. Because when divine wants to do anything with us, anything in this world will happen through us. So we have to become this proper conduits of divine expansion of this world by cultivating and harnessing this deep spiritual consciousness of, the word is called prema bhakti, untainted, unalloyed, unconditional, eternal spiritual love. So it's a very good point you make. Thank you so much, Lisa.
Thank you for expanding upon it.
Hey, anybody else before we get off here? Anybody want to say anything? Okay, well, thank you all for coming. And we hope to see you on Monday and Thursdays, 8 a.m. If you want the Zoom links, you can join our Seekers Quest WhatsApp thread on Veda's Instagram link tree. And you'll get the Zoom links and updates and things like that. Thank you so much for joining us.
I look forward to seeing, I think Lisa is coming. I'll get to see her this Saturday.
Oh,
I'm on my
I
way.
am.
I'm on my way to the mountains. And yes, I'm super
so
excited.
wonderful.
Thank you all so much. Please have a wonderful day and look forward to seeing you soon.
Thank you.
Namaste, beautiful souls.
Thank you.